So I guess it is your turn
Now
to
that we're
introduce the podcast.
we're in a
Check out our new angles, guys.
we have lights. We
And
have a camera stand.
camera. and
I'm
we
losing
have-
my voice.
Me too. These allergies are wild.
Allergies, and we've been talking to people all day, so
That's
there's
true.
that as well. Because we're recording this on a Sunday, and we go to church and stuff.
That's true.
So, all right. Well, welcome to Tea with the Beavers, where we drink tea and try not to spill it. Which I kind of messed up last week, but that's okay.
That's okay.
Fresh slate, new podcast.
Fresh
New
camera
chance to-
angles.
Yeah, and this time you can't see the teapot, so when I pour it, you can't see if I spill or not.
Yeah. Or I could spill it. Or not spill it, pour it. I'll pour
Pour
it.
it.
You want me to pour it?
No, I got it. I'll be the.
Sure.
No, you do it. I'll make you do it.
I'm a pro. Tea Meister here. Today we're drinking
Oolong
peach
blossom tea
blossom.
is what it said on the container. It said oolong orange blossom, but then the orange was crossed out and there was peach on it in Sharpie pen.
Uh-huh.
And it smells like peach. So I'm assuming that my family must have just, recycled a tea canister.
Mm-hmm.
But
fair enough.
it smelled good to me, and my poor throat is in dire need of some tea. So we're going to do this.
Gonna do it.
We're recording this currently on Father's Day, so happy Father's Day
Happy
to all you
Father's
dads out
Day.
there.
All you dads, cheers.
It hurts so good. I might need to go.
Ooh, that's good tea.
He's
already?
not unhappy.
He's not unhappy.
He's just yelling.
I think he's just joining in the conversation. He might be getting unhappy now.
He had a nap, and then his nap was cut sadly short.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Because we wanted to record a podcast. Tea with the Beavers, actually.
Or we drink tea, don't spill it.
Yeah. Because that's the podcast you are listening to currently.
And I'm going to be very open with you guys. I'm very tired today, so we may be a little more lackluster than normal, but we're also going to be talking about stories about our dads, which make it emotional, so bear with us.
Where's the bear?
Wait, we're beavers.
We're beavers. We don't associate with bears.
Wow.
Can barely stand it.
I'm going to go get him and
Good
his
tea.
bottle ready to go. My tea needs to cool down a little bit anyway, so I'll be back.
It's Father's Day.
It's Father's Day. Happy Father's Day. Did we say that already? I
We
think we
did.
did.
Twice. Well, thrice. Thrice at this point.
Thrice.
I have a baby. This is my son. I am, in fact, a father myself.
Happy Father's Day, dear.
Thank you. I got sour gummy worms and a card for Father's Day.
Yes, there's another gift on the way, but Amazon's being stupid, so. Well, actually, it's Etsy, so I don't know.
Sometimes Etsy can be stupid, too. He's not wanting his bottle very much. I think it's too warm.
I could add milk to it. It's not like we don't have a whole chest freezer of milk for him.
He wants it. Look at him. Self-sufficient little dude. Okay. Well, one thing we wanted to do, which I believe you had already said, is we had some stories we were thinking about.
Yes.
When we think about our dads. And so I was wondering, would you like to start us off with a story, or would you like me to?
I can start us off with a story. I have a good one. It's from my dad's childhood. I have 3 nieces who live in Georgia, and this is the 2 oldest ones, their favorite story of their grandpa, which is my dad. When he was younger, I think it was either like his tweenage years or his teenage years. So between like sometime between 10 and probably 17 or something like that. Him and his brother, he only has one brother, my Uncle Mark. Him and his brother would go blackberry picking, as you do in Washington. There's lots of blackberries just growing wild throughout the state. Besides the roads, in your backyard, all the good things. And him and his brother would go blackberry picking together often. And what they would do is they forged this clever plan where, you know how all the best blackberries, Washingtonians, you know what I'm talking about, all the best blackberries are always in the back of the bush, right, where you can't reach because of the stupid brambles. So, he would have, well, his brother would have him fall into the blackberries. He'd put on like layers and layers and layers of clothing and then fall backward or maybe forward. I don't remember. He would fall into the blackberries.
Hopefully backwards.
One would hope he would fall backwards. Anyways, he would fall into the blackberries and his brother would walk across him to pick the blackberries around him. Apparently, I heard about this today from my mom, but apparently, occasionally they would have the neighbor kid who, at, I guess, a football uniform, they would have him do it because, you know, he would have all the protective gear on and stuff. And so he would fall into the blackberries and then both the boys could go berry picking. Anyways, my nieces think that story is a hoot. And I remember thinking that story is pretty funny. I still think it's funny to this day.
You know, growing up for us, we would just, you know, take a piece of wood and throw that down and walk across the plank to it.
Yeah, but that's a lot smarter.
I can understand the feeling of wanting to, you know, trample on your brother to get out to the good berries.
Yeah, it's probably a sibling thing. But
sure.
Yeah, they were super smart, but not always in the most practical way, I don't think.
Fair enough.
All right. Do you have a story to share?
I do. So my dad, when he was growing up, he grew up right next to this beautiful little slough where they would, every year, they would have a bunch of salmon just come up and, you know, hungry for whatever. My dad, he taught himself how to fish there. He taught himself how to row a rowboat while trolling for the salmon out there, and he got really good. All right. Now, my dad, you know, my mom likes to say, growing up, he always looked like a movie star, which fairly true. You know, we've got pictures of him with, you know, the classic, you know, 70s, 80s haircut with the long flowing locks and a gold chain, and, you know, he's really cool dude. But he knew how to fish that water. And he told us once of how his dad was, you know, sitting around at the house, and my dad just shows up at the house carrying, you know, one or two of these massive salmon, one in each hand, and he's like, "Dad, I figured it out." And Grandpa was just like, "Where did you get those?" And he just pointed down at the slough, pointed down. That's where he got them. He took all of us kids there while we were growing up. Throughout all of my elementary school years, there were so many times where I would just wake up because I'd see a light on in the house, and it was Dad getting ready to go fishing, and I would beg him, like, "Dad, please take me fishing." And a lot of times he would take me. And it was a great spot, great fun. Loved the slough. Want to go back there again, but it's a long drive. Maybe when the kids are older.
Not as long as it would have been driving from Virginia, though.
That's true. Yeah, this is on the near the Oregon coast. 6-7 miles in from the Oregon coast where this was, and I hope the fishing's still good. I don't know. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your dad was a good fisherman.
He was. He was.
I still remember seeing pictures of him fishing inside your house and being like, wow, that's a really impressive fish.
Oh, yeah.
He would have these like massive, what are the flatfish called?
Halibut.
Either halibut or not flounder.
It was halibut.
Halibut, yeah.
We wouldn't keep the flounder.
Yeah. Anyways, there was one picture I remember in particular of him and two of his boys. I don't know if you were one of them or not, but there were two of you boys.
I'm sure I was there because
Yeah.
I think I know the photo you're talking about.
And there's just these 3 huge halibut, just like bigger than my entire body, probably. Just massive fish.
They get really big.
And I was just like, oh my word.
It feels like you're reeling up a barn door.
Yeah, man. I have only ever fished for very small things like, I don't know, trout or river salmon or stuff like that. And it's just like, nothing can compare.
Yeah.
To something like that. I like watch TV shows of these people pulling in massive fish, and I'm just like,
they're so dramatic. And
I don't think I could.
You're married to a man who was there.
I know.
Catching those fish.
It's pretty wild.
With my good old pops.
Yep. All right, we'll trade back, and I'll fish out another story.
Fish.
That was actually unintentional.
Good pun. Oh, sorry, buddy. Oh, you're getting passed around like a
doing a little bit of trading back and forth. This is going to be an entertaining podcast just simply because of the chaos that today has been. But it's fine.
It's a good kind of chaos.
It's a good kind of chaos.
For the most part.
So
I smoked a really good pork roast.
You did.
We had
meat. He smoked meat to eat.
Yeah.
Not in a pipe.
Chain smoker over here.
That's why I thought you were going with that. I was like, really?
A couple weeks ago.
I mean, I was stressed too, but I wasn't going to smoke to deal with my issues.
Yeah. Oh, it turned out really good.
Yeah. Another story I wanted to share was my dad has always been really good at reading aloud to us kids. And one of the many reasons why our family has grown up and become such avid readers is because our dad would read to us when we were all a lot younger. Now he doesn't quite so much, but he would read aloud books like The Chronicles of Narnia and The Hobbit and Anne of Green Gables, Secret Garden, all the classics. He would read those aloud. And he always had very specific voices that he would do for certain characters. And one book in particular, Watership Down, it's like one of those books where the narrator does such a good job that every time you read that book after hearing the person read it out loud, you hear it in their voice. So, like, for example, this is kind of random, but like Gollum from Lord of the Rings, you're always going to hear his voice and Andy Serkis's voice, the person who voiced him on the movies. And for us kids, that was Bigwig, a character from Watership Down. He would use the voice of like an impersonation of the voice of John Wayne, the old country actor.
Everybody knows John Wayne.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And he used an imitation of that voice for the voice of this character. And every time I read that book now, I hear that character with Dad's voice. And I will never be able to recreate it properly as a woman. But it's so good. And I hope that someday my kids will be able to experience Dad reading aloud from Watership Down again. But we'll see. That I'll have to get him on recording an audiobook of that or something because it's so good. He's so good at it. And I want to treasure that forever, you know? Anyways.
Yeah. for us, my dad also read some books to us. He would occasionally pick up a Hank the Cowdog book, which, if you know, they are so funny, very entertaining books. And we would just kind of sit around while Dad would make up all the characters as he went. Dad didn't, put too much theatrics into it, but he had a really good voice for reading those books.
I hope my kids someday will be like, you know what my mom did really well? Read aloud to us. Oh, goodness sakes. No.
Poor little guy, having a hard time. He's just mean mugging me like I tried to drown him over here. I'm sorry. Oh, you're out here smiling about it.
It's a bundle of mixed emotions.
He's just a roller coaster today. Another story I wanted to share is about my dad's dadisms, as we would call them, or the Brantisms.
Mm-hmm.
And you got a firsthand experience with a lot of these. I remember when you were living, when we were living with my parents for that time, you got to experience some of these where a lot of times it was just my dad mixing up words.
Mm-hmm.
But one of my favorites, well, mixing up words, like instead of bunny rabbit, it's a runny babbit.
Sure.
A lawnmower is a lawnmower, that sort of thing. But he had this thing. His favorite drink for a long time was Diet Coke. It later on switched to Diet Ginger Ale because of my influence. You're welcome, Dad. But he was a man who could burp. He burped good. And he wouldn't do just a casual,
like,
belch.
Excuse me.
Oh, excuse me. No, he would let it out and he would say words while he was burping. And the classic one for him was always, horse barf ribbit, while he's burping.
Yeah, I always would hear just the ribbit part. I don't think I got
ribbit. Yeah.
I just caught the tail on there.
If he only had a short burp, it would be ribbit.
Okay.
But for the good ones, the real good ones, it's horse barf ribbit. I don't know why those words were the ones he chose to string along for when he was burping, but that's one of those things that if I ever get to be a good burpist,
good purpose,
or a good burper,
not something to aspire to necessarily in life.
I want to be a good
are.
burper. It'd be entertaining for our kids. Horse barf ribbit. That's probably what I'll be saying too.
Yeah.
Oh. You want me to keep going?
Yeah, do another one of yours. You might as well.
Okay. So far, you guys understand that my dad, before he passed, sadly, we lost him in October of last year. He looked like a movie star. He had a great voice for reading books.
Good sense of humor.
Great sense of humor. He was a little grumpy at times, but still a great dad.
Mm-hmm.
He had, the kind of faith that I desperately want to have. He was a man that, life would throw him a curveball. I mean, life threw him a curveball when he married my mom, and suddenly he had
many curveballs.
He had 8 more kids.
8 curveballs, you might say.
8 curveballs. And he took us in all as his own. All of us kids, as we grew up, when we, turned 18, we would take his last name. We like to say that we adopted him into our family. But his faith in the Lord and his faith that God was going to make everything okay is one of those things that I, like I said before, desperately want to have in my life. That's a legacy that I want to pass down to our kids. And, he knew, when I was going through really dark, really hard times with my surgeries that I've had. I've had a lot of surgeries. And my
Another story
dad,
for another day.
another story for another day. But he would be there, calm, cool, and collected. I only saw him get really angry a few times in my life. But all the other times, God's going to take care of you. You're going to be okay. You're going to get through it. It's going to suck. And you've got to embrace the suckiness sometimes. And that's something that I really clung to a lot growing up. And I think my and my younger siblings can all agree that the faith of that man was so pivotal in all of our relationships with God. And I'm sure you have similar your dad's a pastor.
We'll get to that. That's the next story.
But anyway. Yeah. Love my dad.
Yeah. And we miss him a lot.
We do.
Yeah. He's doing so good right now. I feel like you should keep going.
You want me to keep going?
Yeah.
Okay. My dad has great faith. My dad was like a super strong dude.
I thought you were going to tell the KFC story.
Oh, the KFC story. Should I?
Yeah, the ones where after every surgery.
Okay. Well, I've got a couple more. I could talk about my dad all day. He's a great guy.
That's what this podcast is for.
I mean, we don't have all day.
No, but you got time. You got time.
Okay. So every single surgery that I had, my dad would be there. Sometimes my mom was there, but a lot of the times mom was taking care of the house, taking care of the rest of the kids. But dad would be there when I go to sleep, and when I woke up, he would be, right there, the first person that I could remember. And when I finally got to leave the hospital, sometimes quicker than others, he would like to take me to KFC.
Yep.
And my most recent surgery, happened, I think it was 3 weeks after Dad passed away. And I just, I needed to have that again. So I convinced my wife to take me to KFC straight after the hospital so that I could, continue that tradition of me getting cut up and then high on painkillers and eating some deep fried chicken and mashed potatoes. That was some of the most fun bonding experiences I had with my dad.
Yeah.
Just sitting there, hopped up on drugs. Just
chicken.
me being hopped up on drugs, eating fried chicken.
I bet you had some really interesting conversations that he only knew about and you didn't.
One thing I've noticed is when I'm recovering from anesthetics, I don't really talk that much. Which I'm sure my dad appreciated, because all growing up he would call me a motor mouth. Which is true. Which is true. I was a motor mouth. I talked a lot. I sometimes do still talk a lot, but I'm more selective with who. Don't you laugh at me. More selective with what I talk about, I guess.
So, my dad is a pastor.
What?
And well, not everybody will know that. Most people do. Most people do. My dad is a pastor, and so that means I grew up a pastor's kid. And the whole joke, of pastors' kids, be careful or you'll end up in a sermon illustration, definitely happened to us a lot. So we would always, anytime we misbehaved, Mom would be like, "Hey, watch it, or Dad might use you in a sermon illustration." Sometimes he did, and we were like, "Oh my goodness, no." But my dad he is a phenomenal teacher. He has a way with explaining the Bible in a way that really, you're like, okay, that makes, logical sense. And he's always the person I go to if I have any sort of biblical question, because I know I'm going to get a straight answer from him. And he always, no matter what denomination, no matter what background, he always brings it back to the Bible. So no matter what the question is, he's like, well, let's see what the Bible says about it. And he always bases all the theological questions off of what does the Bible say. So even if he has like another preacher or a pastor friend who he really respects, he'll always see and hear their words through the lens of, is this biblical? Is this what the Bible says? Is this what God's word says? And I really respect that about him. That's the one thing I respect most about my dad and I love about him, is I can always count on him to give me a biblical answer for any questions I have about theology, which is super great. And we need to have him on podcast sometime, because we've got some doozies that we could ask him, and it'd be fun to watch it.
Good job, buddy.
We need to teach you how to say horsepower private. Yeah, isn't that right? Anyways, so yeah, it'd be fun to have him as a guest on the podcast sometime to ask him some of the theological questions that's burning in everyone's minds. But anyways, back to the sermon illustration thing. There's 2 sermon illustrations that I only vaguely remember, so I am glad I have my siblings that I can talk to about these, because they helped to refresh my memories. And I actually also asked my dad today, I was like, hey, there's these 2 sermon illustrations I want to talk about on the podcast. Can you just kind of refresh me on what they were about originally and why you used them in the first place and anything? Anyways, he couldn't remember quite why he had this first one, but this is the chowder sermon illustration, the clam chowder sermon illustration. And he was talking about how something I don't remember exactly how this was applicable to the sermon he had at the time, but it was kind of like he explained it as, this was the sermon illustration that kind of got away from me and ended up sort of ruining his sermon. So he had a can of clam chowder, and you know how like in the beginning when you dump the clam chowder into the pot, it's kind of gross. It's like just like the most horrible consistency, and it's got chunks in it too, which does not help the situation. And it's just like, it's almost impossible to stir, and it's so thick and like hard. Anyways, so his idea was he'd have the clam chowder on this little like campfire stove, and he had one of the kids come up, my sister Margaret, come up and stir it while he continues teaching to finish the point somewhere down the line in his sermon. I don't remember what the point was but at the time, but anyways, so he had Margaret stirring this, this little like saucepan on this little tiny campfire stove on a table up by his pulpit, and she's just stirring it, and she's not really paying attention to what she's doing, and the pot starts to move off of the campfire stove, and everyone in the audience is like, no, 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 okay, no, 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 okay, we're fine. That's the whole time. And poor Margaret is like, what are these people in front of me doing? And so she's just kind of watching them while she's stirring, and eventually she kind of notices that the pan is starting to get off, and so she moves it, and then she keeps stirring, and her mind starts to wander, and the people start going crazy again. And then she's like, oh, I should fix it. And so this goes on for the rest of the sermon. And by the end, poor dad is completely unraveled. And it's just like, I don't think he even remembered what he was talking about to begin with, but he must have somehow figured it out and re-put it back together again. But I'm just like, I wish I remembered better that sermon illustration, but I only remember it very vaguely, because I was probably, drawing a picture or something and not even paying attention at the time. But, that's how it is. Anyways, that was the sermon illustration number 1 that one of my siblings in the sibling group chat was like, hey, you should talk about this one on the podcast. And I was like, okay. The other one, which I actually do remember, this happened around Christmas time because our church was decorated for Christmas and we had all these beautiful like Christmas ornaments on a tree and around in various decorations. And
Your church looks really good at Christmas.
yeah, they do a really good job decorating our church for Christmas time. Anyways, it was stunning. And Dad had borrowed one of the Christmas ornaments that was more of a fragile one because he wanted to use it as an example in his sermon. And he was talking about how, you know, like this is what our world is like. It's so beautiful on the outside and it's so shiny and like, ooh, so pretty, so pretty. And then it's all hollow and broken on the inside. And as he says that, he crushes it in his hand. And the glass ornament just explodes across the stage. Just explodes. Glass shards everywhere. And my dad is like, I gotta keep the show on the road. So he keeps preaching through this. And as he continues to preach, he feels like a shard of glass in his palm. And so he picks it out and his palm starts bleeding. And he's like, oh no, what am I gonna do? And he keeps preaching because as a pastor, that's what you do. You preach through rain and storm and a bleeding hand, apparently. And finally, so I think someone took pity on him, and either he ended his sermon and just he like walked off the stage and got a Band-Aid, or someone brought him up a Band-Aid or something like that happened. But anyways, it was quite the exciting Christmas sermon morning, and I'll tell you what, we'll never forget that. That'll stick in our brains forever.
So I guess advice for future pastors:
don't crush glass Christmas ornaments with your bare hands. Yeah. Anyways, so there's lots of other times where my dad has used us kids as sermon illustrations, and I won't go into it because I feel like it violates a little bit of our privacy as children. But I do remember, I think he has a mug right now that says something about like, careful what you say in front of me. I'm a pastor. It'll end up in a sermon illustration or something along those lines. But anyways, that always stuck to me in my brain. And I've always been very careful about how I talk and how I act around pastors from there on out.
I'm going to talk about the big swings, I think. The big swings. We had a property in Oregon that we...
Do you want to talk about your dad?
Yeah, tell us about your dad, Edward.
Yeah. You want to say? Oh, now you shut up. He's like, I don't know. Can I eat it?
Anyway, we had 5 acres of beautiful hilly terrain with massive trees. Massive trees. And, we would, go for climbing sessions whenever we wanted to. But my dad had this great idea. I don't know where he got this from, but he had this great idea where he was going to set up these massively tall and probably very dangerous swings for us kids to play on. But the best one I can remember, he found these 2 trees perfectly lined up where there was a hill on one side, a flat spot where the road was, and then it dropped down some more. There were these 2 trees in a perfect line. He went up, probably 25 or 30 feet up into this tree. No harness or anything. He had a giant rope in his mouth that he was hauling up, just climbing up like a monkey. I'm done with my tea, by the way, dear. Anyway.
I still got time.
Anyway, we're all watching as he's going up further and further up this tree to the point where we can't really, see him through the foliage. And he ties the rope up there. He comes back down. He's safe. He didn't fall. It's all good. We're all great. But then he goes across to the next tree, climbs up again. We're all freaking out because we're like, oh no, Dad's going to fall. He's going to get hurt. He's going to die. Blah, blah, blah. Ties it up. One giant rope from the middle of that we would swing on. And we would just clamber up this hill, climb up onto this, 6 or 7 foot tall stump up on this hill with the sheer drop down that would, swoop us up. And we all learned how to, well, not me, my older brothers. They learned how to time their swing just right to where they could do, a Tarzan swing like on a vine. They would go off of the stump, swing wide through the valley, and jump off.
He's so enthralled with your story.
They would just jump off of the swing, let go completely, fly through the air, and grab onto this young maple sapling. And because it was that way, a young maple sapling are very bendable. They would jump off, catch it, and then it would bend all the way down to the ground very gently for them to dismount. I know, it's very cool. Now, though, I tried it a couple of times. I think it worked once.
It's one of the times you almost died.
One of the times I almost died because there's more than one sapling you can grab onto. And I grabbed the wrong branch, and it was dry and splintery. And I caught that. I'm a big guy. I've always been pretty big. I grabbed that tree, and as I realize it's the wrong one, it snaps, and I fall, 12, 15 feet down to the ground, flat on my back. The air is out of my lungs. I am just gasping.
But you're fine. You're alive
but
now.
I'm fine. I like to think that my guardian angel has been working overtime my entire life.
Yeah,
Poor
man.
guy.
Your guardian angel's gonna breathe a sigh of relief once you finally die.
My dad liked us to have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And another one of the fun things he did, which was started by me, I'll say. I loved building tree forts. We had a lot of scrap lumber from different construction stuff, and I stole it and built a tree fort.
FDA approved.
Well, there was another time when I almost died, but I can talk about that later. Well, I'll talk about it now.
Our sincere apologies to the YouTube audience, as it is at this moment that our battery has died. As we know, you will all very much miss our beautiful beaver faces. Please enjoy these videos of other beavers as you continue to listen. Thank you.
I built a harness because I decided I don't like falling out of trees because of falling out of other trees. I built a harness out of an old piece of rope.
You think he was a beaver or something?
I got up really high. Well, not really high. It was like 14, 15 feet.
Too
and
high.
I'm up there with a drill, screwing in these bolts to put the platform in. My parents don't know that I'm doing this. And
yeah, because they would stop you, you crazy person.
Mom would stop me. I don't know if Dad would.
He'd probably be like, put a bandage on it, go back out.
My harness broke, and I fell, straight down and landed in a perfect spot, avoiding all of the other, pokey objects on the ground, screws and nails and stumps, and landed in this perfect, nice, beautiful spot of moss, and it hurt really bad. My parents found out that I built it way too high, and they made me build a second one further down so that the kids wouldn't die if they fell off of it.
That's probably a good
Come on,
idea.
Mom and Dad. So I built the second platform. It was only at like 7 feet. And then I was like, okay, what else would be fun? I should build a zip line. I tell my dad this, and he is totally on board. He's like, well, you're going to pay for it, but I'll help you. And so we spent, an afternoon building this awesome zip line that at the very end, you hit the stopper and you would fly up into the air and hope you didn't go too far and, break your neck, die. Nobody did, but it was really fun. We would build bonfires underneath it. So you could go down and be like a
roast a marshmallow on your way by.
No,
or your fingers, one or the other.
You could go and just like go through the flames as you went. It was pretty fun. Great spot.
Your poor mom has been through so much with you and your brothers and your escapades.
That's true.
Your dad too, but to be fair, I think he helped contribute a little bit.
a lot of these things my mom didn't know.
Oh no. Sorry,
And
Angela.
if you're finding out now, Mom, it wasn't my idea. I may claim it as my idea, but I'm always
they all survived.
I'm the perfect one. I'm the perfect son.
You never did anything
wrong. I plead the fifth. All of that
plead
stuff.
the fifth,
All right.
After sharing your dirt on a podcast for all to hear. All right. I have some more on my dad. Some more stories.
Some more dirt.
Yeah.
This is Tea with the Beavers.
Where we
drink
talk about tea and don't spill it.
Where we spill the tea.
Never spill the tea ever in our lives.
Especially on family members.
Anyways, one of my favorite things about Dad, and I'm sure many other people like this about him too, is he tells the best jokes and the best stories. And his jokes are also stories. He would have like these super long-winded jokes where he would get into the joke and start telling it. And by the end of the joke, when the punchline actually happened, everybody had forgotten at that point that it was a joke. It would catch them completely off guard, and they'd be like, what? And it would be something super dumb, like the dumbest punchline. But because the story of the joke was so good, it was like, that's what made it funny. Was this, you completely forgot that it was a joke by the time the punchline happened. And then the punchline would come out of the blue and slap you across the face. And you'd just be sitting there reeling while Dad just sits there with a smug grin on his face waiting for you to realize that his joke is done. There's so many good ones. Oh my goodness. There's the 3 green golf balls joke. And the 1,000 green bananas joke. I almost called it by the name of the punchline, which would have been horrible, and I didn't do it. So be proud of me, siblings. I have a bad habit of calling the name of Dad's joke by its punchline, which ruins the entire joke for everybody who's about to listen to it. Anyways, so the 3 green bananas. No. The 3 green golf balls.
Oh, okay.
The 1,000 green bananas. There's golfing with Moses.
Oh, I heard that one.
Or the golfing with Jesus. Yeah, golfing with Jesus.
Moses.
It is. It's Jesus and Moses go golfing. Anyways, golfing with Moses. Golfing with Jesus.
Drama ensues.
Yes, drama ensues. That one.
Podcast.
That one. I have like zero confidence in my ability to retell my dad's jokes, but that one I've gotten almost down pat on retelling it. He still tells it better, but like I do a pretty good job of retelling it. Anyways, it's one of his shorter, long-winded jokes. Then there was...
He also has a ton of great one-liners, though.
He does. Well, and...
Just whip them out in casual conversations. Like...
What? He has a really dry sense of humor, and sometimes it catches you off guard when you're having a conversation with him. Because he can have, like... More so when he, like, now he's gotten into being a little bit more easygoing. I don't know. Maybe my perception has changed too. But as a child, I always thought he was really, like, he looked stern.
Mm-hmm.
and really serious a lot of the times. And it probably wasn't the case, but like as a kid, I remember feeling like really intimidating by my dad.
Very intimidating to ask for permission to date you.
Yeah. But then you get to know him, and he like relaxes and allows himself to be a little bit more easygoing around you, and you're like, oh, he's actually really funny. You just have to kind of get to know him a little better. Anyways, so he was known for these like really elaborate, long-winded jokes. And he has a Sunday school class that he teaches. They're like 9 to 12-year-olds is the age range that he teaches. And when you're in that class, you get a lot of his jokes and his stories in that class. So shout out to any parents out there. If you ever come to Manchester Community Church and your kids are between 9 and 12, have them go to that class and then tell you what Pastor Eddie talked about. Anyways, but he would get kind of frustrated with all the kids who were constantly badgering him, like, Pastor Eddie, tell us a joke. Pastor Eddie, tell us a story. Pastor Eddie, tell us a story. Pastor Eddie tells a joke. And so he came up with one joke and one story that he would tell if he was like not really in the mood for stories or jokes, but he wanted to placate the audience anyways. And his joke was this one. He would say, what happens when a red ship and a blue ship run into each other off the shore of a small desert island?
I don't know.
They got marooned.
You see, you have to understand colors for that.
Yeah, which you probably wouldn't get. You poor shade black man. That was his favorite. So that was his favorite joke to tell, and everybody would groan and be like, "Oh, really? Tell us a story." So then he'd be like, "Okay. When I was this tall, I caught a fish this big." That would be it. That would be the story. And they'd be like, "No, tell us a longer story." So he'd be like, "Okay, when I was this tall, I caught a fish this big." And they'd be like, "No, I mean a story with more words in it." And he'd be like, "Okay, one day when I went fishing, I was only this tall, and I went out and I got a fish that was this big." And finally they would give up and move on. But that was one of the things he would do. One more last thing before because it just came to my mind, is when I was talking about Sunday school class, he came up with some phenomenal Sunday school games. And one of the ones that I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure he created this himself, was Build the Church. And it's similar to Hangman, but instead of drawing a person from a hangman's noose, which is, like,
very,
that's not kid friendly, he would build a church. So he would write out like a verse or a word that would go with whatever he was teaching about in Sunday school that day. And you would guess the letters. You'd be like, is there an A? Is there a T? Is there an R? Typical Hangman type.
RESPECT.
And if you guessed wrong, he would build a wall, or he would build a roof. There'd a little cross on top of the church. There'd be a door. There'd be a stained glass window, because our church has a stained glass window. They'd make grass. He'd make
pretty little flowers.
But he'd make a tree,
Fun.
And then he'd make Pastor Eddie, and he kept adding on things to the church to make it more and more elaborate, to give the kids a chance to guess the word. But eventually, if they still hadn't guessed the word, because he did not go easy on these kids, never. He'd never go easy. He'd do a hard word or a hard verse and make it as difficult as possible for these kids. Anyways, by the end, if they still hadn't been able to guess the word or the phrase or the verse, he finally would be like, "Well, Pastor Eddie wins," and he'd award himself a piece of candy. Because at the end of every month, he would have Candy Sunday. I don't know if he still does this or not, but that would be like his game Sunday. So he would teach Sunday school, and then at the very end of the month, he would have kind of a review week, and as kids like answered questions correctly, won games, he would team them up and do Bible Jeopardy and sword drills and all kinds of stuff. And as they did things correctly, he would award them pieces of candy. And so if he ever won a game, he would award himself a piece of candy and eat it in front of all of the kids, and they'd be like, "What?" So offended. Anyways, that was the other thing.
Yeah.
Do you have any more stories?
Tired. Well,
I mean, of course you do, but
we both, as you can tell, we both really.
I'm out of tea.
Oh,
My voice
out
hurts
of
so
tea
bad.
Beavers podcast where
Tea
we
and
drink
don't
tea.
spill.
Don't spill it. It was a good tea though.
It was a good tea.
But as you can tell, my wife and I, we both definitely won the lottery, so to say, with our dads. And, we texted each other a list of the different stories that we wanted to tell about our dads. And I think it would have taken, 4 or 5 of these episodes to really get very far along into the list at all.
Yeah. Well, and it's like as we tell stories, more stories are
More
coming
stories
to mind.
come up. Yeah. And that's a big problem that I had when my dad's memorial service was, we all shared a story about our dad. And as I'm up there talking, it's like I could talk for hours about the different, interesting things that my dad did or said, or, wonderful things that he's done for us. And I, strongly believe all of my siblings would feel that way as well.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, even you with your dad, I mean, same way. Like we could talk about our dads forever.
Yeah.
But on the same hand, we know that that's not the same for everybody. And for those of you who don't have great relationships with your dads, it can be kind of hard to hear from people who have wonderful relationships or had wonderful relationships with their parents. If you have, be the dad you want to see in the world.
Yeah.
No. I want to encourage you guys,
kind of.
if you have a good story or a good anecdote that you want to share with us about your dad,
Do it.
do it. Share it in the comments below. We read all of the comments.
We do. All 2 of them that are us commenting.
Yep. I comment first, so
Unless I do.
If anybody ever beats me to it, I will be sad. But anyway.
But yeah, we want to hear your stories, and it makes us happy hearing about, what other people remember about their dads, because it's like,
it's good to hear good things about good dads.
Yeah, because I feel like in this world, dads are just, I mean, I feel like Mother's Day has made such a big deal, and everyone's like, woman history and, woman power to the woman, and moms are amazing, which they are. We are amazing. But it's like dads do not get enough credit for the amount of work they also put into the family.
Well, you see what Disney's done to dads for, generations. Is
I know. Well, they made him.
Disney dad is just this stupid.
Yeah, they're either dumb or they're not there.
Or they're mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, for some people that is a reality.
Yeah.
But for a lot of others, for me, for my wife, our dads are great people. I want to be a great person for our kids.
Yeah. Either be a good dad yourself or marry a man who will be a good dad to your kids.
I don't know if that's the man advice.
Well, no,
podcast,
I mean, like, if you're a guy,
if you're a guy,
be a good father.
Marry a man.
No. If you're a lady, have high standards and find yourself a guy who's going to be a good dad to your kids.
There you go.
Someday.
It's better.
Or just be, if you don't end up having kids, be a good dad figure to the kids in his life.
Be a great uncle.
Yeah, be a good uncle, be a good
friend,
be a good man.
Be a good mentor.
Be a good man.
Men, step up. Do gooder.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But
that's the podcast.
you know,
It's
we kind of just wanted an excuse to tell stories about our dad.
Yeah.
But, you know.
and we'll still sprinkle those in here from time to time
Yeah.
because we both love our dads.
Yeah.
And we both love our moms too. We really got lucky, both of us, growing up.
Yeah. We could, there's a whole other set of stories we could tell about our moms.
All good things.
Yeah. I mean,
You guys.
let's be honest. Our parents are people. They're not perfect. They have their moments where they, you know, get upset and yell.
Even dads.
Even dads. Even dads.
But it looks like there is people getting ready to come in the door, so we should close this up.
All right.
Anyways, thank you guys for joining. If
Pray
you
for
would
my
like-
poor voice. It's dying.
Yes. If you would like to, please rate, review, share, comment, all
Give
of
us
that
5
stuff.
stars.
Give us 5 stars.
Share
us
with
4
your
stars.
friends. Tell us that.
Share it with your
we're
friends.
amazing.
Share it with your enemies. Share it with your pastor. Or not.
Our pastor is my dad, so he already watches the
Well.
podcast, I think.
We'll see. If he comments about his dad, we'll see.
We'll see. Anyways,
All right.
I guess
Thank you
we'll see you
guys
guys
for
next
joining.
week.
Farewell from the Beavers. The episode, the show,
Where we drunk
had
tea
dranketh tea
and
and
have
have
successfully not spilled it.
spilteth it today. Goodbye.